Greetings and welcome to Humanology on Air. I am Terri Cameron, the Director of Media Strategy at Kelley, and we'll be discussing something really topical for marketers because today it is all about data. And specifically, we're going to talk about how data is used in performance marketing to help deliver really insightful campaign strategies and drive optimal, maximal results. I am joined by Travis MacDougall, who is a very experienced leader in this space. Travis, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Sarah. I'm glad to be here. So I'm Travis MacDougall, Senior Director of Digital Performance at Kelley. I've been with the agency about 6 years, and I really focus on delivering results for enterprise brands such as Mitsubishi, Apple, Air Canada, FedEx, Remax, you name it, pretty much any vertical I've had the experience of working on in my career.
So we will assume that most people watching probably have a pretty good sense of what performance media is. But for any that aren't familiar with the term, is it fair to say that's kind of on the other end of the spectrum from like brand advertising?
I think performance marketing actually can cover quite a broad spectrum. So even brand advertising can be performance marketing as well. I think we really want to dispel the myth that, just because you're maybe a B2B brand or, you're B2C and don't have large budgets, that performance marketing can actually still be something that you do for your organization.
So Travis, before we dive too deep into everything, why don't you just clarify for everyone the difference between kind of general digital marketing and performance media?
Sure, no problem. So I actually think the terms are synonymous. I think digital marketing is the medium in which performance marketing is actually delivered on. So a lot of companies use digital marketing, but they're not performance-driven organizations, so they actually don't work on performance marketing within the company itself.
So we all know that data is vital to digital marketing in general, but why is it especially critical when it comes to something like performance media?
So data is the backbone for both digital marketing and performance marketing, but the difference is what you're doing with the data itself. So you want to be able to track and optimize in real time. You want to be able to look at the insights and take action on those. And also you want to minimize wasted spend. So lots of companies are really good at just putting everything out on the internet and digital and spending in digital marketing, but not a lot of companies actually work to minimize the wasted spend that they have.
That sounds interesting, and I think a lot of people watching who have some familiarity with digital marketing and they're using things like Google Ads Manager and the Meta Campaign Manager will be familiar with kind of those daily, like looking at campaign insights and kind of optimizing on the fly. But what happens with performance media and performance digital is that it dives much, much deeper. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, it really helps us to anticipate changes in the market that are happening. We can refine things. We can try to stay ahead of the curve. Basically trying to stay more proactive rather than reactive.
So Travis, are you saying that perhaps data can help us predict the future?
So data can help predict the future, but looking at data is actually looking at the past. So if people are making decisions based on past data, it's actually a reactive stance and not a future-looking stance. So you actually have to use tools that allow you to predict future trends and use predictive modeling. But these are the things that organizations should be doing to actually see how future outcomes of the business can happen based on previous data.
So when we talk about things like predictive analytics and trend forecasting and such, we know that that relies on obviously huge amounts of data. Is it safe to say that AI is now playing a pretty big supporting role in how we manage performance media campaigns lately?
Absolutely. So AI has actually been a part of digital marketing and performance marketing for a very long time now. I think right now we're getting caught up in a lot of hype about AI. I think where we're really seeing the big shift in where AI is driving value is with predictions and being able to look forward. So kind of what we were talking about in the previous question. It helps you to be more proactive rather than reactive when looking at data, but also more ideations for campaigns. So think about AI right now is really improving a lot of workflows that other parts of the organization maybe hadn't had the benefit of. So myself being a performance marketer and having lots of experience in platform, we've had AI to help make bidding decisions for a very long time now.
So Travis, let's stay on the topic of AI for just a minute. If AI has all this power, what is the role of the humans behind the scenes in managing the campaigns?
So AI think of it as a great enabler. So it's allowing us to really do things at a speed and scale we never thought was possible before. But if you don't put guardrails in, it's not going to know what to do effectively. So that is where the human input comes into all of this. Understanding what are your clients' goals and objectives. What things should we or should we not be focusing on in terms of an organization. These are the inputs that humans will still play a very big role, even though AI is becoming more and more sophisticated.
Travis, this sounds great. Can you maybe share a recent example of when AI-enabled performance led to some really awesome results for your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a really good recent case study for a global SaaS client. They were looking to lower their cost per acquisition, but they were really tapped out in all the channels that they were currently using. So we used predictive analytics to find what the optimal mix between those channels were to help lower their costs. And we actually drove 35% lower cost per acquisition for them.
I think that's a really great example of just how powerful performance media can be.
Absolutely.
Travis, you make this all sound pretty easy, pretty seamless, but we know that marketing is not immune to obstacles. So what do you find are the most common challenges that you've seen businesses face when they are either planning or managing performance media?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch. There's a swath. That's why they work with agencies to help them solve these problems. But if you think about budget allocation, that's usually a big one. How much are you spending in different partners, different channels, different mediums? You also might want you want to track the results. So measurement is a really big one. So if we think about the guardrails we're giving to AI, measurement is huge. If you don't have the right measurement in place, the platform is just going to go and do whatever it wants and not really know what you're trying to achieve. Targeting the right audience. There's been conversations that take months, sometimes even years, depending on how complex the organization is, around targeting the right audience. Who are you really speaking to? What's the right message that you're delivering at that time in the customer journey? Data overload is a big one. I would like to say analysis paralysis. So a lot of organizations get really into the weeds of the data and sort of lose the bigger picture. So, that is a big problem that we have to try to help pull our clients out of on a regular basis. And I think finally would be cross-channel integration and strategy. So there's lots of ways that this can go awry, especially from a measurement or audience overlap perspective.
I love that you brought up cross-channel integration because I feel like I can imagine that there is a lot of difficulties. There's unique strategies and potentially even specific types of tools that you would need to effectively measure something like that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So especially from a strategy perspective, when all of these tools, platforms, and partners are their own individual businesses, obviously you can imagine having something that sort of brings it all together to formulate a strategy is quite difficult. So again, if we think back to predictive analytics and MMM tools, this is some of the strategies that advanced organizations are using today to be able to determine what are the best allocations by platform depending on the certain goal that they have. So that's one technology that it's commonly deployed for organizations that are facing cross-channel strategy challenges.
So I'm going to stop you for 1 second because I've heard you reference MMMs a couple of times now. For anyone that's watching that isn't familiar, can you quickly explain what you mean by that?
This is basically a tool that helps aggregate all the data that you have from all these platforms and really, again, instead of looking in the past, the data that's already happened, it's your future-looking predictive analytics. So it's able to tell based on previous outcomes, if you're wanting to achieve X goal, what is the right proportion of budget you should be allocating to different channels in order to deliver that outcome with the most favorable ROI.
So our chat today is obviously focused on performance media, but if we consider kind of the overall marketing mix, how can performance media really be used to support kind of other digital activities?
Yes, I think that's a great question. So I think a lot of people and organizations think performance marketing is very siloed from the rest of the marketing team, but that's not the case because there's a lot of learnings you can get from them. So think about for testing and optimization purposes, right? Say if the content team has a theory like, hey, I think this message is going to respond better with our audience than this one. Well, paid media is a great way to take it to market rather than waiting months and months to see if it organically gets picked up and how that is going to resonate. Even think from website development as well. So if you have a landing page, you can quickly see how users are interacting. And you can take those learnings and deploy it across maybe your entire website based on the performance that you're seeing. I think even lastly, if you're planning customer journey mapping and data-driven audiences, again, with the wealth of data that you have, you can actually build personas based on all this historical data that you have to make sure that, when you're pitching this idea internally, it's grounded in some insights and rationale.
That's great, and I love when you the first point that you made about testing and optimizing, testing for messaging. I imagine that with performance media, the volume of data coming through the campaigns can really help us get those insights to deliver back to the team much more quickly. You mentioned versus a
Absolutely.
few months, this happens much more quickly with performance media because of those volumes, right?
That's right. That's right. You can turn it on and off at your leisure and get those insights much faster.
So it sounds like using performance media is in fact a bit of an art form. So why don't we wrap up with some kind of takeaways and action items to help set people up for success? And I know that just based on the conversation that we're having, if I think about a couple of proactive things that individuals can do, if they want to start kind of leaning into performance media, I guess you'd probably agree that number one would be establishing very specific and measurable KPIs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like ROAS, CPA, what have you, and align those KPIs with kind of overall business goals so that you can be sure that your performance media is contributing effectively to overall business objectives. Number two would probably, I guess, be implementing robust tracking tools because you want to make sure that your performance is being measured effectively.
Right.
Do you want to elaborate on those, or what do you think the next steps might be, perhaps?
Yeah, I think I'll split up into 2 points actually. So first one is data consolidation. So I think it's great that you have all these goals and you're tracking all this stuff, but I think bringing all these data points together in a cohesive way is really challenging for a lot of businesses. So I think if you can do that and show results, I think that's going to be a really big takeaway for you coming out of this is an easy win for yourselves. I think the last one is stakeholder management. So now you have all the data together, but now can you tell the story so that way other team members, say your finance team, understands what they're paying for and what the output or the benefit of that is for the organization.
Well, this has been a great chat about the use of data in performance media. Thank you so much for joining me, Travis, and thank you for listening.
And thanks for having me out.